In this demonstration, we'll be using the new Copilot of CluedIn to help us onboard, clean, and standardize our data. Once the Copilot has been set up, you'll see it's available in this chat window down the bottom at any screen you're in the user interface. There is the ability to just naturally talk in between the systems, so we can say hello. And you can see that the Copilot has received and has now delivered back the answer. However, we want to do some data management tasks. One of the ways to understand what are the kind of skills that CluedIn has to be able to interact between the large language model, in this case the Copilot, and the CluedIn application itself. We can ask it for what are all the functions that I can do. We could use the word functions, we could use the word skills, we could say, what can I do in the CluedIn platform? And these will all give a relatively similar answer. In this case, I'm wanting it to just note and list all of the different skills that are available in the CluedIn Copilot itself. So we can see here, as of today, there are about 40 plus different skills that it can do, such as creating hierarchies, creating entity types, creating deduplication projects, and so much more. Let's close this down for now and open up our data sources. Here, I've uploaded two data sources, some contacts from our CRM and some companies in our CRM system as well. Let's head into the companies and let's click on the file. Here, we can see a preview of the data that we're looking at. One of the skills is to help describe the data. So let's open our Copilot and say, hey, tell me a bit about this data set. This should activate that particular skill, and then it'll talk in between the large language model and CluedIn to figure out the answer. Here we can see it's activating the fetching dataset information skill. This was the one I wanted it to do. And in a matter of seconds, we get back an answer that helps describe the data we have in front of us. So notice that the Copilot is aware of where the user is in the application. That's why we didn't have to mention any names or put in any identifiers. It knew what I was looking at. So it tells me a little bit. First of all, it says it looks like it's coming from a CRM system. It looks like it has columns like record ID and number. The record ID is a numeric identifier for each record. And then it goes through and it tells me a little bit about the data. It also recommends some possible validation that I can set on the records as well, and so forth and so forth. It did also interestingly pick up that in the annual revenue column, there seems to be a weird value. Okay, well, we don't have to solve everything at this point. So let's close the Copilot for a second. Now, usually in CluedIn, we would use our zero modeling to go ahead and map this into the concept of a company. Imagine you already had the concept of a company in the platform, and we actually wanted to map the data into that concept. Let's go ahead and set up an existing entity type and vocabulary called companies, and we're going to ask the AI and Copilot to actually help us in the mapping process itself. In fact, why don't we first of all ask it to, can you create me a new entity type called company? After all, that's one of the skills that it can do. It's activated that particular skill, created the entity type, and even given me a handy link to go off and view it. Now, I also want to create a vocabulary. So can you create me a vocabulary called, and let's call it company as well, for this entity type? Great. It's activated the right skill, and it's given me a handy link. Here, my shell is pretty empty. I don't have any properties on this. So why don't we ask the Copilot to help? But in this case, I actually want it to create multiple different keys at the same time. Can you create me 10 different vocabulary keys for this data, including name, ARR, let's say web, let's say address, city, country, let's say it's got, what's on a company? Let's say we have an industry, let's just say sector. What else have we got? We've probably got a CEO. We have, how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need 2 more. So let's also do a street. And finally, we will do, what could we do? Let's say is bankrupt. Okay, so this is just a flag to determine if the company is bankrupt or not. So let's go ahead and ask it to do this. This is really where you can start to feel that it's very powerful, in that I can chain different types of prompts together. I can even ask it to do things in bulk. In this case, I don't have to go through and ask it individually to create the individual keys. Rather, I've instructed it to create 10 of those keys. Let's head back. We'll duplicate our instance here. And you can already see those keys starting to come in here. Now I'm going to give it a few more seconds for those other keys to be created. But if we head back to our screen and head to our data sources, let's go back to those companies. And instead of using the auto mapping, let's go ahead and ask the Copilot to help us suggest some mappings towards that existing model. So let's say, can you suggest how to map this data set to the company vocabulary? After the suggestions has come back, I can even go ahead and ask it to make the change as well. You can see here that it's done some pretty impressive stuff. It's detected the types, the type of data, and the data type as well. So here it's even mapped things like annual revenue. I know that that's ARR. Let's go ahead and head to our mapping screen. Let's click our map and go ahead and auto map. Here, based off our suggestions, we can map this to the vocabulary that we just created before. And let's go and create that mapping. Let's head to our edit. Let's head to our next page. You can see CluedIn has automatically detected the right name and also the right identifier. Let's go ahead and process this data into the platform. Pretty quick. Let's do one more skill. We saw before that we could list the 41 different skills that the Copilot had, but now that we've got data in the platform, let's take one of these properties. Let's head to the properties view, and I think before it made a recommendation that there was this silly annual revenue of cat. So let's click on the annual revenue key. Under all values, we can clearly see there's some valid values and clearly an anomaly. First of all, let's ask it to, can you detect any odd anomalies in this vocabulary key? Once again, highlighting this is the key that we're actually looking at. The Copilot has seen the request, and now it is activating the anomaly detection skill. Here it says, Looks like the value cat is not valid. Great find. Can you please create me a golden record rule that flags all the company records that have a company.annual revenue of cat and tag them with bad value. So in this case, I'm wanting it to react off the fact that it's found an anomaly and then create me a deterministic rule that will mean I can capture this and automatically tag it with that bad issue. Here, it says it's created me a rule, so I can go over, and you can see as I close the Copilot, wherever the vocabulary annual revenue equals cat, then we're going to automatically tag this with bad value. Let's activate this rule, and let's run it against the data. Pretty quick. If we head back to our search, filter, you can see that my bad value tag has been, and I can clearly highlight here that it's because the value of annual revenue was incorrect. This is just some of the ways that you can use the Copilot to fast track the data management process in